What are we offering everybody, and how do we make sure that everybody feels like they're getting something good?
How do you ensure equity between the on-site folks and the remote folks?
Then there's a piece about norms and just cultural niceties, right? Like something as simple as sending an agenda out. Human beings who are women or femme presenting, human beings who have a racial minority identity, people who experience chronic or mental illness. They're having a different experience and they have different needs.
Hello, heroes of hybrid work. I'm Jenny Mobius and an SVP at Skeda, where I'm lucky I get to help organizations bring their hybrid workspaces to life every day. Part of that mission includes bringing you the latest data and insights from today's top voices, researchers, and business leaders so you can make the best decisions for your business. On today's pod, Bethany Nicole Smith, workplace experience specialist and founder of the Heritage Network, a vibrant community exclusively for Black women in people ops, DEIB, and administrative roles at tech companies, shares what will separate the winners from those struggling to implement hybrid work, how to ensure equity between on-site and remote employees, and the important difference between workplace and employee experience, and why the magic happens when these two experiences merge.
So, quick question about yourself. How did you get into DEIB, and was there some kind of an aha moment for you that drove you into this career?
Yes, actually. So during the pandemic, I was working with Depop at Etsy, and I was an office manager at the time of the entire world shutting down. But I was suddenly an office manager with no office to manage, right? Like I sent everybody home, we sent everybody distributed. And then I looked up and it was what I call the Black Square era of Instagram. And we were responding to the murder of George Floyd, and everybody, every company was just everybody needed an ERG. We looked up and it was just like, oh, employee resource groups. We need DEIB. DEI needs to be happening. I knew that I wanted to be involved in setting those things up at my own organization, but we didn't necessarily have a structure in place that was going to facilitate ramping up something of that nature quickly. And so we did it anyway. We did it in an effective manner. But I realized as I was networking with other people at similar career levels that this was happening to a bunch of people. This was a need and an opening, right? There were a lot of people who were being voluntold, right, to help start ERGs. There were lots of people who wanted to start ERGs and have programming but didn't know how to get that started. So I wrote a free ebook called The Affinity Guide that gave templates and workbooks and context and the whole shebang. And I ended up making a cute little chunk of change in the pandemic off of that. But I think that was the moment that I realized how much of what I was already doing was DEIB programming, was that like we were just already doing that. It had been like a year into the pandemic at that point, and we were already trying to figure out, okay, what does keeping our culture alive look like when we were used to having our culture in an office and now everyone is in their respective living rooms? How do we, given the tumultuous nature of the day-to-day news cycle, how do we support our people and the communities that they care about, right? And then outside opened back up, but we had spent so much time collectively organizing and programming on that level that the need and the want was still there. And so now you're talking about it in a way less virtual way because people are starting to come back into the office. People are starting to engage in determining what their hybrid work arrangement is going to be. And each company is approaching it differently. And there are different factors that weigh in. And so it then, to me, became really important to figure out, how do we keep doing this? How do we make it sustainable? How do we How do we decide if it's going well, right? Like there were just a lot of questions that needed to be answered. And so I was like, let's do a research project. I think that a research project is the way to answer any question. So pull together a couple of surveys, deciding what are we measuring for, and this is at another organization. I'm sort of painting a broad picture of my relationship with hybrid work.
We're now fast forward to we're out of the pandemic, right? And we're
Yep.
forward to hybrid work. And now you're creating a research report for the organization that you're with
Yes.
in order to make the hybrid work experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were in like the middle of the return to office phase, and like we understood that we were having a hybrid relationship with work, and we understood that we wanted people to come back to the office on these various and sundry cadences, right? That's how we did our team agreements. But we on the workplace team really wanted to answer the question, what is our workplace experience offering? What is it? What is the workplace offering now that this is a hybrid universe? And since some people's workplace is their living room, and some people's workplace is the office, and some people's workplace is both, depending on the day of the week, what are we offering everybody, and how do we make sure that everybody feels like they're getting something good? And so I set out with a research project. I wanted to find out who was coming to the office. When did you make the decision to do that, right? Like we have team agreement days, but do you ever come to the office on a day that's not your team agreement day? What feeds into that decision? When you are here, what do you like about being here? When you're at home, what do you like about being at home? What do you not like about both of those scenarios? What isn't working? What does fun mean to you in this new arrangement? Who are you trying to connect with that you can't or don't feel able to? What's missing? And we did focus groups and we did surveys, and the answer to the questions sort of resulted in needing to approach on several different fronts. There was like a facilities and fixtures piece where we really found out that when you come in and you walk across the floor, the office is huge and I don't know where anybody is. Like, yes, I have this map. We used another software that was like, we used Envoy. And so we had a floor map, and theoretically, we also had digital signage, right? We have a UR here. But I mean, is this customer success or is this product engineering? I'm looking for so-and-so and I know that they're by the staircase. But the staircase, like the office is a square. I could approach the staircase from 4 different directions. I don't know what I'm doing. And so little things like making the neighborhoods more clearly defined, letting people, we launched I Love It Alliteration. So we had the Nest in Your Neighborhood campaign where each section got to come up with their own team mascot. They got a color. We made them flags so that you could tell at a glance, right? You could do your own name tag. We made it super sustainable by using an internal, just so many different things that you could do. So there was a facilities piece. There's a tech piece. If you can't hear the people who are in the room, when you're at home on the Zoom, that means they need a microphone. That means we need to like sort of up our production. We also found out that if you were hosting like an all hands-esque type meeting, the person facilitating that meeting, if they were on site, they needed to like leave the room that the meeting was being hosted in and like post up in a separate area that was close by but had a screen. And so just understanding, how is everybody using these spaces? Which of the events that we're hosting do you want to come to? What makes you want to come to them? Is it the connection or is it the free food? Do you literally just want me to feed you and leave you alone? Because I can do that. So all of that to say, lots of researching, lots of asking questions, and just really figuring out, what are the people that I'm trying to serve? What are they looking for? And how can I give it to them? And understanding that my key stakeholders for me as a workplace person are always going to be the various different departments, the ERGs, and my senior leadership team.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you're collecting a lot of engagement data, productivity data, right? And making sure people feel comfortable when they come into the office. That's excellent. And so I'd love to jump into, because you kind of mentioned those were the challenges, and now you're trying to get to how to solve those challenges. How do you ensure equity between the on-site folks and the remote folks so that they do feel like they both belong at this organization?
One, I think it's really important to get clear on, from a programming perspective, why are we doing programming, right? Like, what are we gathering for? And like, what do we want the people gathering to do, be, feel about having gathered? And so if we're doing a team event, and the reason why we are doing this team event is because we want everyone to feel tied to the team mission, or to like mingle with other people depending on the size of the team. There's 300 of us, and I want you to meet with somebody that you've never met with before. Whatever the case is, getting crystal clear on what you want your attendees to get out of the experience. And then secondly, realizing that equity and equality are not the same thing, right? There's no way to have the same experience. But we can get the same outcome by doing two different similar or not similar things, right? So for example, I consulted on putting together a team event package in a hybrid universe for an organization. And the reason why they were having these team events were because, culturally speaking, they wanted the teams to, it was about work-life balance on the one hand, just understanding that fun was meant to be had, and to be building camaraderie between the interpersonal people of the team. I also found that depending on the size of the team, that interpersonal relationship was either meant to, on teams of 10 or less, it's meant to strengthen the bonds that we already have with each other. And when it's more than 10 people, you're trying to actually forge new bonds. So now that I understand that, the hybrid experience is going to be the people in the office. We are going to collect. We're going to do something fun. There's going to be food, and there's going to be like maybe a personality quiz happening. Everybody is going to do the personality quiz. The people at home are going to do it with the people in the office. Everybody is going to flap. There's going to be a Slack group where we talk about our insights, and the whole thing is going to be on Slack. We don't need to be in a room to do that. Everything is there. But for the fun portion, what we're going to do is link up our remote folks with each other and send them to go and do something. And then the people in the office, they are going to do something else together. And we are also it's going to be programmed into the experience that we return to that Slack group, and the groups are going to swap pictures. We're going to swap things. And then in our next team meeting, there's going to be a spokesman from each group that's just going to be like, this is what we did. Oh, we had so much fun. And just having it just has a flow, And so that feels like a long-winded response.
Well, but I really love what you said about that there is a difference between equity and equality, because the goal is the same. The goal is to make sure that these folks come out feeling like they're connected, that they belong, that they had fun. And so, but there are different ways to get to that goal based on where you sit. So I thought you said it very succinctly. And so thank you for that story and bringing it to life. So I was looking at your LinkedIn account, and my favorite post was about the difference between workplace experience and employee experience. So you talk about when the two merge, it's where the magic happens. And I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about how to make that magic happen in the hybrid experience.
So there definitely is a place where workplace experience and employee experience diverge, although there is an obvious overlap. Both of these areas are talking about the experience of the human beings who work for your organization. Where they diverge is that workplace is talking more about the literal physical setup where people are working from. And the employee experience piece is more about their life cycle journey, their experience through their life cycle being with your organization. And so those two things play really well together. But in a hybrid universe, talking about workplace experience means if you work from the office, what can I do to make, what can I provide in that space to make your experience great? If you don't work from the office, what can I provide to make your experience great? And so even that, answering those questions is cross-functional oftentimes with the employee experience piece because, for example, you work from your home. How can I make that setup work for you? It needs to still be ergonomic. So I would like to put together either a health and safety training about what an ergonomic setup is. I need to make sure that any work from home package that I offer you, I at the very least need to provide ergonomic suggestions. I need people experience or the benefits team or whomsoever to sign off on giving my work from home people whatever it is that they need. So there's that ergonomics point of it. And then there's working with IT to make sure, do I need to send you headphones? Do I need to do something on site to ensure that when we're having a hybrid meeting, everyone can be heard? Then there's a piece about norms and just cultural niceties, right? Like something as simple as sending an agenda out beforehand and attaching it to calendar invitations so that there's an equitable experience, making the chat, like even if we are on site, join the meeting via Zoom and making like the mute yourself thing just second nature, and utilizing the chat so that there's an equivalent experience, having a second TV in a space. There's just a lot of different things that you can do. And so understanding that the difference between workplace experience and employee experience is that workplace has a focus on the space aspect of it, and then applying that to a hybrid universe, making that magic is about understanding where all the intersections are, who even are my key stakeholders, and what do I need from them. And again, really being crystal clear on a high level strategy of what am I offering? What are we giving the people? And making sure that that ties in with all the rest of what's going on at your org.
Absolutely. I definitely love that. When I used to work at PI, we would all get into the meeting, but we would also be involved in the chat. We would all show our faces. It didn't matter if we were sitting in the room together or not sitting in the room together. All of those experiences made it, I think, a really great experience for both wherever you're sitting.
Right.
Awesome. So let me jump into, because I know, man, this is going fast. I don't like this. So maybe we touched on this a little bit, but how do you think company cultures need to evolve to meet these new demands that employees, and maybe they're not demands, honestly, that seems a little harsh. It's more about meeting the needs of the employees in a hybrid experience. How do you think companies need to evolve?
I think that one, being willing to evolve is really the first step. I think that we as a collective society on a grander scale than I think we've ever seen before went through a collective experience together. And so I think on the back of that, everybody sort of agrees that change is nigh, right? Like she's gonna come, she is here, we are changing. And having a willingness to just be willing to adapt and making whatever the adaptation that you're about to do based on some Venn diagram of what the people in your organization are needing and what your organization is setting out to do. And that's like a purely leadership thing, that's change management thing, that's like that big strategic C-suite thinking that we're always asking for in a bunch of different facets. But it's really about balancing those two aspects on a big picture level. And I think that doing that will trickle down to helping answer the question of what are we giving people and how do we want to package that offering to everyone. I think we get sort of lost in the weeds of like, is this a demand, or is this like, what are we doing here? Are you saying that, is my staff all going to quit if I ask them to come back to the office? And individual contributors are just like, is the fact that I've been doing this fire from my house no longer Are you mad at me? Like, what's going on? And so breaking those walls down and being able to have the real conversations about the fact that, like, some of you have been ridiculously productive from home. Some of you have been depressed. Some of you miss in-person interactions. Some of you don't want in-person interactions all the time, but you do need a place to escape from your roommates, though. And I would like to provide that place for you. But in order to do that, I have to make sure that the lights stay on, and that costs actually $1 million a year. So, right? I think that we can have these conversations a little bit more authentically, right? Like, I'm not going to fire anybody. I don't need you to quit. I'm just trying to make it make sense for everybody. So let's just calm down and figure out what we all need to do and let the C-suite do its strategic thing with all of the real information.
I always want to get this question in. Was there anything that you came to this interview wanting to share with the world about hybrid work that maybe I didn't ask the right question to actually get that thing out of you?
I think that the DEIB aspect of it comes from the fact that each individual human being has a different relationship with both their home and their workplace. And that relationship is inevitably going to factor into what they want from the organization and what they need from their workplace experience package in this hybrid universe. And the reality of that is that, human beings who are women or femme presenting, human beings who have a racial minority identity, people who experience chronic or mental illness, they're having a different experience, and they have different needs, and they just have different weights, and they have different responsibilities. And it's not necessarily your job at the organizational level to understand that when you begin making the programming, but it is your job to find out. And that is the piece that's going to be super duper pivotal in separating, like, the giants from the knots, because that is what is going to make your hybrid workplace offering truly bespoke, truly amazing, and have people buying into it in a way that, has them making viral LinkedIn posts about how awesome the organization is.
That was so beautifully said. I'm so glad that I asked you that last one.
Thank you.
That was so beautifully said. It is your job to find out. And I agree with 100%. These kind of organizations that just say, we're all coming back or no one's coming back. It's so not personalized, like you said. Yeah. And everybody has a different situation and everybody needs to be heard.
And it's like, if we weren't talking about this on a societal level and someone at your organization said to you, look, I'm having an issue. This is the issue. I need this. You would work with them. So, like, let's just work with them.
Ask them, right?
Yeah. It's all okay.
Yeah. Awesome, Bethany. Well, this was a huge pleasure. How can folks get in touch with you if they want to continue this conversation?
Absolutely. You can email me directly at hi@thebethanynicole.com, or you can just come and check out anything that I am thinking about working on writing at thebethanynicole.com.
Excellent. Everyone heard that. All right. Awesome, Bethany. Well, I think, thank you so much for your time and for these incredibly powerful statements that you made. I cannot wait to get them out there into the world.
Thank you.
Awesome first interview for me.